about that. Phospholipids. Phospholipids are like triacylglycerols, except that one of the fatty acids has been replaced with a phosphate group and an amino alcohol. And we're going to talk about amine groups in the next chapter, chapter 16. Okay? We're not going to do a whole lot with this group here. Amino alcohols are found in glycerophospholipids, and these are the three common amino alcohols. We're going to talk about amines in the next chapter. Ooh, shoot. I want to talk about snake venom. Dang it. I gotta go over here. That's a cool picture of a rattlesnake, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What happens? Read this right here. Anybody read this word right here? Phospholipids. What do you think it does? Anytime you see that ending ASE, that means it breaks stuff apart. What does it break apart? It breaks apart phospholipids. Okay? It is an enzyme that breaks apart phospholipids. Where do you find phospholipids?
Cell membranes.
Cell membranes. So when that rattlesnake bites you and injects venom into you, it is breaking things down at the cellular level. That's kind of cool. He doesn't know he's doing that. He's just thinking, dinner time.
This has always worked before. You bite something.
Yeah, you bite something, it dies, and then you eat it. Right?
There you go.
And the problem is it gets into your red blood. It gets into your blood, the venom gets in your blood, and it breaks down your red blood cells too. Your red blood cells are cells, right? So it starts breaking those down. That's not good.
And then you suffocate because your organs aren't getting.
Well, what happens is if you ever, there's occasionally shows on Animal Planet, they'll show people who have had snake bites, and the tissue turns necrotic. Y'all know what necrotic means? It dies. Like if they get bit on the hand, the whole hand will turn black because all that area is deprived of oxygen. As soon as it enters the area where there's lots of venom, the red blood cells fall apart and it can't provide oxygen there. And so like if you get bit on the hand, you'll lose a lot of the tissue on the hand. Or like people that have had snake bites, they'll be missing part of the tissue because, right, that tissue dies and they have to cut it off. So it
Your
doesn't
day
spread.
doesn't come back.
Yeah, it doesn't always come back. No. Yep. But that's kind of cool. I mean, you know, I don't really care about these guys. And, okay, steroids. Do I know anything about steroids?
Okay.
No!
Too much of them.
They help keep them from.
Don't you have some steroids? I got steroids. You got steroids? You get steroids? You got steroids? Steroids? Everybody got steroids. They're good for you in the proper amounts. Okay? What you're thinking about is guys that are juicing, right? Using anabolic steroids. And we'll talk about those in a minute. Okay? So, here's our steroid nucleus. There are 3 cyclohexane rings and 1 cyclopentane ring. We're not going to worry about how they're numbered or anything like that. Here's cholesterol. It is a steroid molecule. Because it's a steroid, it's not water soluble. Okay, just like all lipids, it's not water soluble. So when you have too much cholesterol, what do you think happens? In your blood, what do you think happens? It builds up on the artery walls. I'm going to show a picture of that in a minute. Right here, as a matter of fact. On the top is a normal artery. On the bottom, it's kind of hard to see in here. If you look at your book, that kind of yellowy stuff in between. This stuff, like all this stuff here and up here, I think. This down here and this up here. That is plaque, what they call plaque in your arteries. Okay? It is caused by having too much cholesterol in your blood system. It interacts with some of the fibrinogen in your blood, and will deposit and will clog your arteries, leading to high blood pressure or even heart attacks. You need it though. It's made in your liver naturally. If you eat too much bad food that has cholesterol in it, though, your cholesterol levels go up. It's considered elevated if it exceeds 200 milligrams per deciliter. That's kind of at a rough average. I would say if your doctor tells you your cholesterol is high and it's like right around 200, have them check it multiple times. One time my doctor of mine came back 201. He goes, "Oh, you got to go on special diet." I said, "You can kiss my, you know what." I said, "You check it once a year and it comes back positive one time in 5? No, sir." I said, "I'll be glad to let you take another sample and we'll check it again." Right? You're checking it multiple times during the day, check it several times over the course of a few weeks, and then you might understand where it's supposed to be. You can get rid of some blood cholesterol if you just eat foods that are lower in cholesterol. But your body's still going to make some because it helps in digestion. Okay? So, how does it help in digestion? Well, bile salts are made in the liver from cholesterol, and then they're stored in the gallbladder. These bile salts help in digestion, right? Particularly in fatty acids. If you have too much cholesterol, it can accumulate in the gallbladder as gallstones. So instead of depositing in your arteries, it's depositing in your gallbladder as gallstones. Your gallbladder is normally pretty small. That gallbladder is like 10 centimeters or something. That's huge. And those are gallstones. That's a gallbladder that cut open so you can see the gallstones in it. It's kind of disgusting. For some reason, gallstones is more of a problem in women than men, but it's not unusual in men, but more women get gallstones than men, and it normally happens in the late 30s or early 40s. And what they do is they can, if it gets bad enough, they can just go in and remove your gallbladder. It can happen when you're younger. I have a girl in my other class, she had her gallbladder removed this semester. She's only 24 because she was having bad gallstones. Okay. I had a friend in Louisiana, he was having gallbladder problems. They took him in a hospital, they opened him up, and his gallbladder ruptured. What do you think happened to him?
He had a bad day.
The next day was worse because he died. He was septic. Anytime your GI tract is attached to your GI tract, right? Anytime your GI tract ruptures, you put all kinds of stuff into your cavity to your thoracic cavity that you're not supposed to have there, and you can go septic. And he was septic, and they opened him, and there's nothing they could do for him. He died the next day. Yeah, it was sad. Wife and 2 kids. So, if you start having pain in your midsection regularly, you should probably go to the doctor and have it checked. Okay. This is what bile salts look like. How does it help transport, how does cholesterol help transport fatty acids? Well, it forms an ester bond. This is my fatty acid tail, there's my cholesterol, and it helps form this complex, and then it can transport this lipoprotein. Lipoproteins are non-polar lipids with polar lipids that surround they're polar, they surround non-polar lipids. Why do they do this? They make it so that they can be transported. Lipoproteins are polar, and therefore they can transport non-polar things that they surround them. They can take them to various parts of your body or cell to make them useful. Okay? There are different types of lipoproteins. There's LDLs and HDLs. There's even MDLs. And in the other class, they were asked, well, which ones are good? Because they hear some are good, some are bad. I think the latest research indicates that you need all of them, but it's no longer the absolute amount you have, it's the ratios that they occur in. So I think the LDL are supposed to be the good ones and the HDL are bad ones. Or I might have that reversed. I really don't care. I eat what I want to eat. I figure I'm going to downplay anyway. So. Steroid hormones. Anybody have any steroids? Yes, you have hormones, right? Most of your hormones are steroid molecules. Things like, all you ladies, y'all have any testosterone in you? Yes, you do. Even though you don't have testes, you do make limited amounts of testosterone. However, males do not have estrogen or progesterone unless these are exclusively female hormones, right? However, if you are transgendered and you want to be, like if a male wants to become a female, he would start taking estrogen and progesterone. And it would help, like, if you don't have those and you don't do things like develop breasts. But even though I have the tissue there, it's not grown out, right? Because males can get breast cancer too, right? It's normally very bad. It's almost always fatal, I think. So, anyway, these are some of the steroidal things that you know about. What do you guys know about? You know about people that are, these are the structures of them. You know about people that are using anabolic steroids, right? These artificially produced steroids that people inject normally, or you can take them orally, but a lot of times they inject them. They're normally derivatives of testosterone. So what does testosterone do? It helps you build muscle mass. It helps your endurance. It helps your muscles recover after exercise. But what does it also do? What does testosterone do? It also impacts your mood. So one of the signs of people abusing anabolic steroids is what? Roid rage, right? Anybody ever know anybody that was abusing anabolic steroids? That came along after my time. We didn't do roids on us. You did?
There was some asthma in my high school.
Yeah.
Like
Very common among football players. Sometimes baseball players because it helps build muscle mass. More common with the strength type sports, right? But all at the professional level, all of our strength sports. Barry Bonds, right? Using steroids. Alex Rodriguez, they play baseball. It was very common, and I told the other class, if you ever want to hear about, there's a sports show in the morning called Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio. Mike Golick's a former NFL player. And he talks quite openly about how they used to use steroids all the time. They had to compete at that level. Okay. It's scary though because it can lead to liver damage. It can lead to huge emotional issues. One of the other signs that's not quite as bad is acne, particularly back acne. If you see somebody that has a lot of acne on their back, a male, right, then they're almost certainly abusing anabolic steroids. Yeah, a little scary. But why do they do this? Because they think that they want to be the best at some sport and that using these will make them better. And it does. That's it. And it doesn't take a lot for them to get a big return. So they say, oh, it's not that bad. Okay, steroid hormones are called adrenal corticosteroids. They're produced in adrenal glands. And they include things like aldosterone, which regulate electrolytes. Cortisone increases blood glucose levels, stimulates synthesis of glycogen. Glycogen is important in cartilage production, which I have none in my knees, right? So when I go, they give me cortisone injections into a certain site to help stimulate that production in there. It's a good anti-inflammatory too. Oh, cell membranes. Cell membranes are made up of a lipid bilayer. They have two lipid molecules on either side with a non-polar tail pointing towards the middle and the polar carboxylic acid group pointing out. And there's literally millions of them lined up next to each other, right? And they form a layer. It's called a bilayer, with 2 lipid molecules there. Why do you think that's important? What do you think it prevents? It prevents water from moving back and forth across the cell membrane. It regulates the pressure of the cell and allows things to stay in the cell. They're supposed to stay there. And then there's ports in the cell that allow things to move through. When you take anatomy class, you'll learn about cell layers, cell membranes. And that's it for chapter 15.